How you going there, guys? Sorry, I'm a bit slow just to get on there. Just let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. I think it's all coming through nicely. Let me just log back on there. Just see my YouTube's not working quite well. All right, how are we going? Good work. All right, how you going there, Helen? It's been a bit hectic for me there, guys. But thanks very much for Dav for sharing his wisdom on Monday. That was great. It was actually enjoyable just sitting back listening for a change. How you going there, John? All right. Let's just get up and running now. Sorry, it's still a bit disorganised. Just had to try to set up. Dav and I have been on the computers, just trying to set up everything. We just moved yesterday, so it's been a bit hectic trying to get everything running. For anyone that's an Optus fan, I've just gone off them, I think. I haven't got internet just yet, and I've had a fair few problems with Optus, so I thought I'd let you know. I think their service has pretty much gone straight downhill, so looking at Telstra instead, I think they're matching each other now. But we've got everything up and running, so if I do have any issues, just let me know as we go, if it drops out or anything like that. All right, well, let's get into it. Welcome, guys. It's Thursday, the 2nd of November. As you can see, the market's up. It's only up a point, so it really was not much of a session last night. I think the US, they kicked off quite well on the open last night, but then they got sold off a bit, back down to the break-even marks. I think the Dow index only finished up a little bit, whereas the futures on the S&P, so the Dow and the S&P finished up 0.2 and 0.3%, so not a lot. I think the futures pretty much finished break-even, so not a big session. It was pretty much FOMC come out last night. Now it's that interest rates are going to be unchanged, and they pretty much reiterated what they've said before about the economy is growing at a gradual pace, so it's nothing new to traders, which means you shouldn't see any terrible volatility into the market over there if there's a kick up in interest rates, or if the data comes out a lot surprising to the upside and is a lot stronger than they expected. So, John, yeah, look, mate, for me it's just been I sat here for 4 hours the other day waiting for them to come over, and they never did. They were meant to call me yesterday, they never did, and I'm still waiting for a phone call now. So I just think their service is horrible. But anyway, me having a bit of a whinge. So, yeah, the US, which means the SPY, I think, actually sold off in the open, I think, yesterday, and then it bounced back a bit, and it bounced up through the European session last night, up to about 12:30, and that's when it backed off a bit. So hasn't gone on with it today. I thought it may... Look, it's still looking like it could hold a higher low on the actual, on the SPY anyway, the SPY futures, and kick up a bit, which would drag the XJO up. And let me find where that is. Let's take a look at that. We'll get off the intraday here. That's your gold sector. Oh. So that's your XJO. You see how it's just starting to spike through that 59.50 mark. It's not... If we struggle a bit to hold above there today, it's looking okay, but this, I think it was it must have been last Friday, that red candle there. We're just drilling on that. I was a fair bit busy that day. We were playing around, but you can see how that smashed down through those lows and then bounced straight back again. We've been positive since then, but it's a sign that maybe there's a bit of selling coming in towards those highs. We'll have to see how it goes. It's been a very good run up, from, say, 56.50, bang, straight to 5900, even 59.50. So close to 250 to 300 points. And it was, like Davin was mentioning today, we were chatting about it, it's been quite an easy ride up there. It hasn't been, no bumps along the way. So it's only now that we're starting to get up into that resistance up there that we're starting to find a few bumps. So we may just wash out the highs and then have a decent pullback and build a higher low on the daily charts, on the ASX anyway. But I think we're just going to be wary that we've had such a good run, on our alerts that we've been doing. We were more than happy to lock in some gains and lock in partials, take some losers off the table, just close things out, clean it up a bit, because when you have such a good run, the chances are that it's gonna pull back on you, or some of the stocks that have had good run are gonna have a big pullback, and so you don't want to get caught, without taking the opportunity to put some or book some gains and put them in the bank. So all good. Are you talking about Optus there, Helen? Anyway, I'm a bit frustrated with them. I can't believe how frustrated I've got with them. I'm normally a mild-mannered person. When I was on the phone, I couldn't believe the rubbish they were telling me. And they actually flicked my internet off on Sunday night. So 2 days earlier than when they were meant to come in to hook it up here at the new place. And yeah, I just think when you get onto the phone to them, I think they just say whatever they want to say just to get you off the phone, hoping that someone else will pick up the phone call next time. So they're interesting. I guess that's what happens with them nowadays. And I think Telstra, the funny thing is, I actually reckon Telstra are playing games, because there's only Telstra line into where we are now. It's not an Optus line as well. So basically Optus have to go and rent the line off Telstra to give us ADSL2. So I think Telstra know that and just playing funny buggers. So 4 weeks. They gave me a date to hook up my internet. So I know we're getting sidetracked, but I rang them well and truly in advance when we moved. We moved yesterday, rang them about a week prior, speaking to them. And they said, we'll email you or we'll text you a date that you're booked in. And it was the 28th of November, 4 weeks later. Oh, and that was ridiculous. And I rang them up and they pushed the date back to the 31st and then didn't turn up anyway. So it's been a bit of a joke. All right, let's get into it. So the US, not a big night overnight, which means we're probably not going to have another big day today. I think we're fairly contained. Earnings come out. The US has been kicking goals. So they're a bit better than expected, which seems to be a bit of the norm. They're doing quite well, except you're not getting the percentage gains overall as they did recently. I think, what are we now? The third quarter, the second quarter, they're up around 9 and 10%. We're only up about probably 6% across the board at the moment. Yeah, funny. That's not exactly what I was saying either. Funny is not the terminology I used. Completely agree with you. So the funny thing is, it stops everything from working. We don't get the TVs. We can't hook those up properly because we've got Optus Fetch, the TV, and we've got everything going through there. It's just stopped all that working. I'm actually going to think about just ringing up Telstra. So if you can hook it up fast, I'll go with you instead. Get Foxtel. Anyway, here we go. Me ranting again. You don't want to get me started, and don't talk about speeding fines. Alrighty. So we're going to a couple of things we're going to talk about today. Dev and I were discussing NAB. They've had some results out which didn't go quite well. In a short time frame. That say 7 days. Yeah, no, I'm gonna be saying stuff like that. Hopefully they call me back today then, Michelle. That's probably the right tact, I think. The only thing that's going to get them moving. Yeah, the funny thing is, I don't know if anyone's used it. You use Hotspot on your phone. I've got the iPhone 7 or something, so I've got set up the Hotspot through my laptop, and I've hooked up the TV as a second screen at the moment. It's actually working beautifully. I can't say it's having a problem at all. It's been without a hitch. So it's going through the phone line, your 3G or 4G network instead of your landline. The only thing is it's costing me about $10 a gig, which you use that in about a day. So I can see it's going to get very costly to do it that way, but it's, as a backup plan for anyone that wants to know, it's beautiful. Really, really good. And I seem to be running everything that I normally run as well. I've got a couple of trading programs up, the streaming program, YouTube, all that sort of stuff seems to be running without a hitch at the moment. Yeah, no, I might have a bit of a crack at that. Anyway, let's get into trading. Otherwise, I could go on about this stuff for days. I went through a spate of, I lost my license for 3 months, and I don't reckon I was doing more than 5Ks over any speed limit. I got done by about 5 cameras at 62 in the 60 zone and stuff like that. I thought it was ridiculous, but anyway, it's me having a rant. Now let's get into it then. So today we're going to have a bit of a chat about NAB. We want to talk more about intraday. Just want to show you what we talk about supply and demand. It's relevant whether it be on the daily chart, your longer term, your weekly charts, or even intraday. You can trade. A lot of people. It's big in the US. A lot of intraday trading in the US on the stocks over there. It's probably not. I don't know if the movements are as good over here, but there are times when you can easily intraday. I mean, NAB, for instance, today. Come out with an announcement. I don't think it was that crash hot. I haven't actually looked at it properly, but where's my mouse gone? Oh, all right. Let's not worry about that. So either way, so what it's done is gap down. The price is gap down on the open. You can see here, which has brought in a lot of volatility. As you know, price is moving around, bouncing around. So it's brought in quite some good volatility. So if you're looking at this intraday and you're looking at it on the news announcement, look to see where it opens. You can see the market's gap down, had that initial thrust up on the bounce, and then there's more sellers that maybe have missed. Anyone that's probably tried to get out of it here, or anyone that's bought it in late, may want to get out. And you've got this big capitulation on the open. It's opened down. Anyone that didn't get out on the open, they've probably sold into this bounce here, and it's sold back down, but then it's found support down near that low. So what we've talked about, a few times about the supply demand, there's been a bit of demand in short-term buying more than anything else. And you can see if you're working off those higher lows, how important they can be. So you can see the low down here. I'm just going to find out what that low was. Like 31.81 on the open, pretty much traded down on that first. I'm on a 1 minute candle, by the way. Traded down in that first minute and then bounced up to a high of 32.15, and then it pushed down and only got down so far as 31.84. So what's that? 3 cents. 3 cents. So it's just a mild higher low. But then you can see this green candle. The next candle brought in a bit of buying, and then you've had another push lower just in this region here. I probably can't draw that, but can you see what I'm talking about just in here? You can see let me get up this. I'll mark it up actually. So for anyone that likes intraday trading and is trying to learn about it, there is definite opportunities. That's not. I hope you can all see that quite clearly. So you got your initial low here, then the market's had a bit of a bounce just above, so it's pretty much a higher low. This level just in here is the key one. It's probably not shown up very well, is it? Can you guys see that? I don't think what I'm trying to show you. Let me just try to... best fit, hour, 2 hours. Day. Anyway, that's probably the best I can do, I think. Well, you can see the data across on the left anyway. We'll just draw that up. Might be a bit easy to see over here. All right, so that's your chart there. Oh, that's rubbish there, really, isn't it? Oh, that's probably all right. So that was the low of the day. That was when it hit, pretty much you can only just see that first green candle had that little bounce up. So we made that little high at 84, 32.15 or thereabouts. Come back down to 84. And it's this nice little region here. I like that little spot there. You've got this little high low. So if there was going to be weakness, you would have expected that red candle to be followed by further red candles and selling down to at least testing back down to 31.80, even below that. There's going to be some serious weakness, but instead, you've got the opportunistic intraday buying that have just taken it for a bit of a run. Buy on that. It's showing signs that that level is going to hold around that 31. Those lows are going to hold, and you're going to get those buys are going to try to push it up to at least take out those highs, which it did in hindsight. It pushed all the way back up to 32.40, and then you can see that selling is coming back in. So that's pretty much starting to close the gap as we head up here. I don't think it did. Example, what was that high? Yeah, I was nowhere near it really. But anyway, so you can see it's popped back up. Then you've got that second wave of selling that's taken it back down. It's still holding high lows, but you can see that initial first hour of volatility is probably the place to be. It's not really trying to intraday trade it now, because I think your intraday trading is the first hour or so of trading when there's more volatility, and you can see as the volatility comes out of the market, there's less opportunity. Now it's pretty much gone sideways. So whether it picks up towards the end of the session, I don't know what's going to happen, but you can see it's pretty much gone sideways. The last was an hour and a half. But you can definitely see what we talk about time and time again, looking at those higher lows and just looking for those setups. It's the same type of setups as we look for on a longer term daily basis, but they also play out intraday when you get some nice volatility. You can just look for those opportunities when volatility kicks up a notch. You get those high lows like we see here, so you can see that strength is starting to pop back into the market. And it's also, if you're willing to get out, you're willing to probably hold your long position if you wanted to sell out of it, just to see if it can push up a bit. And then you get that secondary wave of probably that selling coming back into the market, purely because of the longer term sellers maybe coming in, just exiting, closing out some of the position just to see off that news announcement more than anything else. Does that make sense there, what we're just trying to say? Intraday, I mean, you can look at different charts. Probably a lot of the time in Australia, I'm finding it's around news announcements more than anything, because a lot of it's harder to get those nice little swings that you get, and especially with higher volatility, the way they move. You probably need higher volatility in our market, whereas in the US, I think it's quite so many stocks over in the US, and it's just such a bigger market. Those intraday swings could be more than worthwhile, and you don't really need them kicking off on the back of news announcements. They just get, the volatility is just natural over there. So it's an interesting one to talk about anyway. Any questions? Really clear. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it also, like Dave said, not only volatility kicks up a notch, it brings in volume as well, which can move a market a bit better. So it's a good one. I just thought, Dave was mentioning this morning, thought it's just a good thing to talk about. You don't have to just stick enough in intraday trader. Well, generally, I've always traded intraday, mainly the SPY 200, Euro, more your indexes. But I think there is some really good opportunity in the stocks as well. Like I said, not as great as the over in the US, but there are opportunities to play with. Like you said, you just need probably those, maybe just announcements, more likely over announcements anyway. Now, I've just got to remember how to get off this. End of day, here we go. Yeah, and like Dave just put up there, the moves are actually quick. They're a lot quicker than what you'd normally get. So you got a gap down, you know that there's probably going to be some sort of play, continuation buyers jumping in there, taking it as an opportunity to buy in there. Just the intraday traders are willing to jump in for a few cents here and there, just try to nibble out a few cents, not trying to take a lot. But like you said, you do have to be quicker than you normally do. I mean, God, the setups here, you've got a whole day to make up your mind sometimes. Say, for instance, this buy, if you're just looking through here, the market's starting to hold some high lows, hold higher highs. If you're looking for this as a buy, you've got the whole day to buy, and your risk is just below this $30 level, as opposed to having just a minute or two to make up your mind. So you really have to plan it out. Yeah, plan it out, know what you're looking for, know what you want to see, and really being on the ball with your exit as well. All right, I just got to think, what was the other thing we were talking about? Now, I'll just go over the alerts quickly. We're down to 5 alerts now from 7. We had one just stopped out at a small loss today on NCZ at a small loss, but it doesn't mean it's not going to set up end of day. Let me just have a quick look. So let me go over here. NCZ still has some good news, but this could just, your key level sort of around that 120 mark, just below that low. We got in just below 140, had that little pop up, which is great, and it's come back. And just after seeing this type of price action, that little green candle and then a couple of red candles, I was happy just to tighten up the risk there. You can always sit there and watch it, and that's what we say. It's better to be, if you don't really know what's happening, you're not really certain, sometimes it's better to be on the sidelines than actually holding a position. And you've really got to know exactly where you want to place your risk and what you want to see. And if you don't see that, obviously you can widen your risk out. You can have quite wide risk. We could have had it way down below that 120 mark. So the risk could have been below that 120 mark. But what if you're wrong? I'd rather be wrong and losing less and just tightening the ship and having that opportunity to re-enter again. So if this gives us a couple of good signs, it starts to pick up above 140, it could be a re-entry, and then you can have your risk just below 130. So you're really starting to tighten up your risk. You're not trying to take any you're not trying to take any large risks on any one trade, especially if you don't know, it's not clear to you what's actually playing out. I mean, this thing could be played. It struggled to reach through those highs. The highs are at 165. You can see it only got to 163 and it started getting sold off. And especially after the run that it's actually had, it's had quite a good run from 130 cents all the way up to 160. You know that there's probably going to be a few sellers. There's a few buyers that are stuck in that holding and watching their profits. And if they start seeing that they could get evaporated, the profits start evaporating, you wouldn't think they're going to be sitting around for too long. So there's a bit of supply in the market ready to come back out, if that makes sense. So it's always good just to be on the safer side. Let's say at a trade like this, the way we entered here, did push up. If it didn't follow through those highs, you should expect a strong market to push up through the highs. Instead, it just started backing off. It got a bit tentative. But then again, this could be just a bit of a flush out. It could chop around, holding some inside higher lows. We'll draw that up, what I'm talking about. So again, it's just coming down to, it'd be nice, this is what we see. That's not what I wanted. There you go, go away from there. I'll show you what I mean. What would be nice if we, whoops. I'm not very good with the mouse, I've got a different mouse. Everything's a bit new to me today. So you can see the trend's still up. If we can hold in here, you've had this little push up, that's up here. The market's backed off, quite a deep correction. It's had a nice little pop back up and then another deep correction. If we can just do something from here, we can hold some inside high lows. That means that you would think that the market is still getting supported by buyers. You can see they're jumping in at higher lows. Just these inside levels, the sellers are starting to get pushed back out of the market, or any selling's actually getting soaked up by the buyers. You can see they're still quite strong with this kind of setup, and then you're really just picking your entry from there. That would be ideal to see that. And then I think that would take out these highs at 160 and above. There's still price targets, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, above $2, it's $2 something, wasn't it? 220 or something like that on this stock. Is this on NCZ? We're at 135, so we've just basically been stopped out today on this, Michelle. In it, I think it's 137 in, out at 135. So it's pretty much trading around there now. Okay, so I'm just reading your question there. New question. Okay, so this has got a price target at 250. So if that's the case, it could still have a bit of a ways to run up, which would be nice. So just bear that in mind. If we do get a bit of contraction in here, and when we talk about contraction, we mean price at higher lows, lower highs. I'd love seeing that type of price action, that contraction. You call it a flag, pennant, whatever you want to call it. But that's still a bit of undecisiveness between buyers and sellers. Who's winning the race? Who's starting to take control? And then when you get a break either side, whether it's breaking down or breaking up, then that's pretty clear what's happening there. And that can tend to lead to a nice strong move up, and really go on with it a bit. And Credit Suisse are 250-ish. 250-ish, I like it. All right. Any questions just on that there? So that's one we're talking about. The other one I wanted to talk about is CAN. But before we do it, so you're talking about Mega May, whatever. So you're talking about volume. A lot of the times, volume, when you see volume increases, a lot of the time it can be a lot of the big volume players are maybe getting into, this is the way I would view it anyway. This is probably not the world's best example, but you can see that the volume was quite high. It's picked up, considering what it was through 2016. 2016 wasn't much at all. Got a big spike up in volume. Maybe there was the start of this year. Obviously a big gap up in price too. Something's happened there. It's pushed down, built the higher low, and you can see that volume's holding at higher levels. It's starting to edge out of the market now. So what that's saying to me is that it's the start, when this is the unknown. More of your, I guess, your bigger traders, pro traders, would be looking for those areas to trade, the bigger volume traders, I guess. And that's why you're getting that increase in volume. And then as the market starts pushing up, you get further volume starts to come in, but it starts petering out because you're bigger, I guess, in your bigger players, or they're getting more in the unknown just as it comes out of the unknown. As you get towards the end of or potentially the end of a move, I'm not saying this is the end of the move, it's probably not the best example. You can see that volume starts to peter out. There are times when the market drops off, you can see the volume picking up a bit, but it's not as common, like you said, as when the market's kicking up. Well, I don't think it's as common as when it kicks up, and that's probably could come down to the fact that when the, say if the market, I'm just trying to, let me see if I can find one that makes a bit more sense. That's one we just had. So that hasn't rolled over. What's the one that's rolled over? Anyway, I'm just trying to think of a stock that's actually, it's gone up, we've got in, you can see it definitely rolling over, holding a lower high. And what we want to see is that lower high. And see the volume. It might be a good example of volume increasing. You tend to get good sort of, you can see on this one anyway, this is can, good little kick up in volume here, then it peters out as the market it heads higher, then you start to get a bit more volume in here, and that's maybe as we get people exiting, which the volume's kicked up there. You can see on that red candle, on that down day here, that big down day, the volume definitely kicked up there. But then it's just getting soaked up a bit, and you can see that volume slowly petering off as it holds high lows, and it becomes more of the known, and it starts kicking up again. You got volume just in here. You can see just potentially that sellers just going into the market. So you can see on those swing levels, so that's where we're talking about. This is one we're going to talk about in a second, it's just kicking up into that $2 level. So we saw that as a particular level to potentially get out of the whole trade, and just look to take the opportunity to exit, and you can see that leg up there is about equal to this leg up here, which took us to around that $2 zone. And you can see it's not the only ones thinking that, as volume started to spike up, and that's potentially people who have held it through here, looking to edge out of a position. And like we do, you don't edge out of all in one hit, and not the whole of the market, to get those big spikes in volume on the way down. Am I making sense, or am I starting to just confuse you more? I'm probably confusing myself too. And a lot of people, they exit at different times too. They exit for different reasons. Not everyone enters a full position and exits a full position. We like to do partials, take them on the way, and you might find that a lot of people are doing the same thing, or they might be entering a full position, trying to enter a full position like that. That's where you get some good volume. As it becomes more known, they're exiting here, exiting here, exiting here. So you get that steady volume increase, and it starts to roll over. Volume didn't really pick up through here, through September. Started picking up a bit here, and then it's picking up on the way up. And that might be, people just buying it up as they see it's becoming more of the known, and then it's just kicked up towards the end here. You get the nice red candle. I hope that helped. If not, now can is one we're going to talk about in just 2 seconds. I'm just reading through the comments there. Whoops, credit swish. Zesty cleaning. You said NCZ might stay in at the 120 mark. Well, we're not in NCZ at the moment because we tightened it up a bit, and the reason why we like to do that is more because I'll just go back to that price action. Oh, that's interesting. I don't even know how I did that. Sorry, right, I've done something weird with my program that I've never done before. So I might just have to log. I've done control something, haven't I? Oh, here we go. So it was an NCZ. So here, it's just this price action didn't like too much, so we're happy to exit ready and raring to keep it on the watch list, ready to go back in. But basically that 120 mark that we said, that's sort of key level. I think if it gets through, trades down to 120, even takes out not so much this low here, 117, more of this low here at 124.5. I think if it trades below there, it's probably going to be a bit of an issue. You'll probably find that there's a few people starting to get into the get out, exit, whatever, or it may have a deeper correction, more of a macro correction before we start holding a higher low and push up towards that 250 mark. Does that make sense? So yeah, I think the trade will definitely be proven wrong around that 120 mark for me anyway. FMG, let's take a look at that then. Oh, before we go, I'll talk about CAD. So start to think about what you want to have a chat about, guys. Man of mystery. Oh, Nando, I just saw what everyone's talking about. Oh, mate, I haven't got enough USB ports at the moment on my laptop. That's why I can't put it in my face. Plus, after the last few days, I'm probably a bit weather worn. I haven't done my hair, I haven't had a shave too much. It probably wouldn't be a pleasant sight to put on the screen. And plus, I'm a bit weather worn when I haven't had more than one coffee. All right, let's get into CAN. So CAN we just want to talk about. I think this is a good example of, where did we get in? So CAN was one we got in just around here. I've just lost my program now. Here we go. Here we go. I'm getting organised. All right, so CAN is, we just got out of that. So Devon was speaking about this on Monday. I think it was Monday, about that $2 mark. If we go back here, we might be able to see it a bit better on the weekly chart. Coming to that $2 level, you can see there's a bit of reaction. The market's pushed down into $2. This is way back in 2013. Washed it out, had a bit of a reaction off there. Bang, got smashed down through that level. So coming up, it's probably more of a psychological level. You might expect to see some reaction off that level. And another reason why we're happy at that level is that we showed on the daily chart. Oh, actually, I'll show it. Let's go back to sketch. Here we go. Is more of this move up. That's pretty much equal and opposite, or about that. So we call it a volatility leg. We've spoken about it before. Thanks, Helen. Jesus, I just proved your fact then. I just saw that comment. Anyway, so that a volatility leg is what we say, the action leg up. So you get that action before you get that reaction, a bit of washout of traders, put the buyers or put those buyers back on the sidelines ready to go back in again. And then you get a bit of chopping, some lower lows, and then the market chops around and it starts heading higher again, expanding higher. So that's where I think Devon mentioned on Monday, between the market's got to go through expansion and contraction. So we're calling this expansion when it starts to spike up, and this is contraction in price when you hold some lower lows and generally some lower highs, sorry, and generally lower lows. Sometimes they just contract in and it can just get choppy, below the high, which it did here, and then start expanding back up again. And I think when you measure that initial leg up from pretty much the lows to the highs, take it from the potential lows when you start holding higher lows, measure that out. It's always giving you a good target. So that took us to around that $2 mark as well. So there's a couple of factors in play there. Matching up together is why it was probably a good exit. And the market had gone on really hard And we were, happy to take it off there. I think we booked, I can't remember what we booked, but it was a good little gainer for that one after that entry. And it may start to get a bit played up there. You probably find there's start to be reaction, and especially after seeing that a couple of days ago when we did get out. The way it reacted off $2, it popped up through $2 and bang, got sold straight back down again. I think it finished up around the 170 mark. Now, the other thing on this one is, for anyone that does follow the alerts, you probably noticed that we send out the alert, and I ended up chasing the price down. Kept changing the price to say exit at this price, exit at that price. And basically when I hit send, it probably wasn't the exact price that was tradable, if that makes sense. So we had to go and send out another alert saying exit at this price because we knew the volume there. So what we're trying to do, if you do see a couple of those alerts coming through, we're really just trying to make sure that if you're following the alerts and you're trading off the alerts, there is, or you can easily get out when we say we're not going to give you fake prices. And in essence, I think we did get out a bit lower than if we did hold on for a bit longer. I think it kicked above $2 before it sold off down to 170. But we'd much rather be, I guess, in what we're doing and making sure that you can exit and there's enough volume there for people to actually get out. And that goes the same way when we look at taking profits. I think one that just took a partial was RMD, if I'm not wrong, 11.15. Yeah, 11.15. So it did trade 11.15, but I wasn't happy just to say we got out at 11.15 when it just traded. It could have traded one share, and putting that into the results, it actually traded through 11.15 about a minute later or so. So yeah, just trying to keep things as honest as possible, I guess. So if you just did notice those two alerts coming through, that's pretty much the reason why. All right, let's get into it. What am I saying? FMG. Let's have a look at FMG. FMG's been on the short side for a while. We've been saying it's short from around here, I think, and just in here as well. Now, one thing, I've been watching this FMG. We didn't actually call it as an alert. If I can just go back. The reason why this could just be holding, it'd be interesting to see if it holds around that 450 mark. But I think, and you can see that selling pressure from 6 down to just below 5, you can see it's been quite heavy and it's holding up a bit. So the original premise for this short position was to be, okay, you've got this big washout, you've got it popped up to the high at 7, had a bit of a pullback, and this is way back when we said it was going to be a short through 6. Popped up, washed out that $7 mark, and then you got this lower high just in here. It's probably easy to see on the daily. Yeah, lower high, and then it broke through 6, pushed all the way back down, pushed back up, and you can see that that buying was quite steady on the way up, and then it started struggling around 6. So that's pretty much where it broke out from on the downside. So what we were looking for back at this weekly, the potential for, that's your first leg down, that reaction, an initial reaction back up as buyers start flood back into the market thinking they're missing out, it's going to go back up through 7. And as it starts rolling over, you've got all this buying supply that started to come into the market, potentially having to look to turn around and get back out again. And that was the premise for the short sell. All right, so we had that initial leg down, looking for that secondary leg down, which could take us somewhere around that 350 mark to fall as a short sell. Now, the problem with this one is it's starting to show some signs. It's getting sold down heavy, but you can see with this type of move down, that was quite heavy from the highs at 6 down to 5. And it was getting soaked up. It had another push down, and you can see that this was the key level down through here. And on the weekly it's taken quite a bit of effort to get down to that 450 mark. Does that make sense? MACD buy on FMG today, but I'm waiting for a few days. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. It's just reacting off this level. So for us, I think on the short side, I mean, this thing could easily roll over. It could keep going. It could, do exactly what we initially thought, straight down through, that support around that 450, and then just keep going. But it's just that weekly chart, the pressure it's taken to get even down to 450 is quite heavy. So that it's more controlled, that sell-off, than anything else. It's not a frantic running for the doors type of sell-off. So from here, You've got your key support here. You can see that even on the daily, it's getting extended down here. The stochastics, the pressure's been quite heavy. I would be looking for that sort of pop up through, I think it's 510, 515 mark, just this little lower high in here, because that would suggest to me that this downtrend is starting to break, and that level is starting to hold up at 450. And what I'd ideally be looking for from there, you've got this sort of pressing down into that 450 mark. I'd ideally look to see if we can hold some higher lows from here. And if we hold the higher low, again, it's that sort of contractive move. You're holding at a higher level, you get that major double bottom at 450. 450 is a great sign that that's going to hold, and then you start to look to attack the $6 or even higher, just depending on how it plays out. But yeah, I think it's starting to look like there's buyers stepping in just above 450. The way it had an initial thrust down, this wasn't too strong. You can see the moves down are not too strong. They're getting soaked up. Does that make sense on that one, guys? Dave, does that make sense? But it looks interesting anyway. Let's look into what we've got now. Burkers. KAR. Let's have a look at that then, Zing. Karoon Gas. Look, the only thing with this one here, this doesn't look... You can see there's a bit of difference with the strength in this one. This one looks like it's well and truly settled into a downtrend. You have got this reaction off. That was the end of last year, and then it's drifting lower again, back down to these lows on the see if it shows it up on the daily. Well, it doesn't really show up on a daily. Does that make sense? But really, on a weekly chart, you can see the level was here, just above 3. Then the levels come down to about 250, that 250 mark. So that's sort of your swing levels, holding it down. It is coming into an interesting level, just above $1, say $1.20, $1.25. This previous low just in here. All right, let's just draw that up. So you've got that's your key swing level. So you can see it's just holding as lower highs all the way down. It's probably a bit harder to see here. They were inside levels anyway. The market's pushed down, reacted up, pushed back down, reacted up. So the selling pressure's just continued. It's pushed down to sort of that low here, which it really hasn't broken through just yet. And okay, we chopped around that, held up, we pushed back up. So you get that buying starting to step in just after we can't break through that level. People starting to try to pick that bottom. It's pushed back up. That selling pressure's continued. It's pushed back down into that level. So at the moment we're in at that. I'm not from the weekly. I wouldn't buy it. And you can see that pressure up recently, that push up is really, it hasn't got the price anywhere. It's really struggling to push that price higher. So it's quite a bit of solid buying pressure, but it's really struggling. If we go into the daily, and that's probably that little pop up just above 130 from that 110 mark. So even though that buying's been solid, it didn't get the price in the scheme of things. Get the price to react higher too much at all. And even on the daily chart, we haven't broken any key levels. Can you just give me a second here, guys? I've just got to grab this quickly. I'll just be one moment. Sorry, guys. Yeah, that was my mum. She's just dropping over to say good day and see the place, and she's lost, which is not unusual. Women sense the direction. Anyway, back to this one here. So this is Karoon. I don't see it just even on the daily, just at the moment. I see that the good thing it's got it going for it, and it's down on that on this support zone here. But it's really got to prove itself to me. So you've got that key support. It's starting to maybe work its way off. But I think until we sort of break through that, there's two little highs, lower highs here that are still holding. This market can go bang straight down. So there's nothing to say it can't. And you can see the pressure starting to pick up. It's pushing up. It's getting bought up. But it's really holding below that It's probably this low just in here, this lower high. So in essence, if we see, let's just get rid of that. So this is what I'd be looking for from here. So that's your two levels. That's your support and your resistance just up here, or that key anchor level just above about 135. We've pushed up into there. We've pulled back. We're starting to hold a little levels in here. We're just coming up. If we break up here, that's what I'd be looking for, and that's what would perk my interest more than anything else. I want to see that proven, that buyers are starting to will it and break it up through some key levels. And then, of course, I'll be looking for my higher low to work from, an entry from, something like that. So you can see it starts to expand, it takes out this high, and then you start to get a trending higher, with higher lows, higher highs. Does that make sense there? Hopefully. HVN, let's look at that. Alan, let's look at HVN. Harvey Norman. Not a big fan of Harvey, but all right. For me, looking at this price action, I'm not too keen on it, to be honest. You can see the pressure's been to the downside. This is the weekly chart, don't forget. Let's just take a look at this. It looks to me a bit along the way of FMG. It could easily be a sell-off. I don't know. I mean, no one knows at the moment. All right, thank you, Optus. There we go. I've reached my gigabyte. On to the next $10. Yeah, good on them. So straight away you can see that uptrend holding higher lows, higher highs until we get this type of price action. Then we got bang straight through, and you've just broken through. Also, this it's probably your key low on the weekly trend. It held, and if you just pick it apart, you've got a leg up here. A bit of contraction here, a bit of sideways action, another leg up here, a bit of a contraction. So the market's going from contraction, gone back into expansion, back up again, and then we've got this big sell-off down here. So this looks like it could be more of the start of a macro correction lower than anything else. Does that make sense there? And you've had this little reaction back up, and you're starting to get the price. It could hold up around that 375, but it's, the one thing working for it on the weekly charts is that this move down has had quite good selling straight down. You can see that. And it's just reacting off that level a bit. So if we go to the daily, we want to look for evidence on the daily that it's going to hold up. Yeah, even on the daily, I think it's got a lot of work to do before. It's got to hold this low for me. It's got to show that it's going to hold 380. It's going to show, strengthening some buyers back up, and it's got to take out 420. Start attacking up towards 450, maybe blow through it, and then have that pullback to build that higher low. Again, to be wanting to buy that. Otherwise, for me, it potentially could be a sell through 380, and you're holding risk just above 410, just in here. And just see if it can, on the weekly chart, let's get back to this one. See if they can have your secondary leg down. Let's just clear that out. So that's your first leg down. See if it can have another leg down. It could take it right down to 250, for example. So this could be a good 3-to-1 sell. All right, yeah. I hope you're long. You're thinking about going long, short. All right, WPL. Let's look at that one then. Woodside, isn't it? Now that's looking interesting. I'm actually finding oil. I haven't looked at it for a while. That's looking good. So for me, straight off the bat, looking just at this, at the weekly chart, it's a bit of the opposite. You could be having. Well, we don't need to draw it up. You can see big sell-off through end of 2014 through 2015 into the start of 2016 when we had the oil selling off. WPL started holding some higher lows, working its way higher, which, okay, that's good. So that's your initial leg down. That's your reaction back up. That's your contraction. That's your expansion lower. That's your contraction back higher. You're looking to see if it's going to get that continual move lower, but instead, we're pushing lower, we're expanding lower, and it's starting to hold some higher lows and starting to look like it's picking back up again. And that's because, crude's holding above $50 a barrel, I'd say. So really, we've got that push up to 34. We've had a pullback, and on the weekly, it's looking good, and you're starting to pick up on the daily. So ideally, what you could be looking for it to be pushing straight up through $34 a barrel, $34 a share. What I would be looking for from here, I'm looking for that pullback for that continuation trade, potentially to around 30.50, that 30.50 mark, just to build that high low and see if you can work an entry off that 30.50 mark. See how it goes. Anyway, it could work out that way, or just think could just keep going. But to me, I think it's on the daily. You can see how it's getting extended up here. It's had a couple of good strong days. Now, if oil ticks over, you'd expect this to tick over, but I think oil's going the way they expect. It's going the right direction. Even US crude oil inventories last night were a lot lower than expected. So it was a bit strange how crude didn't kick on with it. But that was probably factored in anyway. But the supply is getting eaten away at, and it's going in the right direction, if that makes sense, to push crude higher and see if crude prices can be supported. If that's the case, you might start to find this WPL starts to kick up and takes out those highs at 34. All right. Paul exited FMG just under $6 earlier this year. No interest in it since. Yeah. Exactly. Agree with you, Paul. Yeah, look, in all honesty, I probably missed that initial leg down on FMG. And it just doesn't look quite as strong. Greg, I've lost sound. Is everyone else hearing me? I hope so. STO, let's have a look at that then. Yeah, just look at them. Actually, on the daily, I'm thinking, but you can see that these rounding sort of bottoms, they're starting to hold up a bit. And you can see, look, STO's down on its knees pretty much, isn't it? Around that $2, back to where it was in 01, 02, before it trended up to highs in the mid of 08. And then it's tried to go again and get smashed towards the end of 2014 down to where it is. So it's looking like it's building some potential, but again, that leg up for me is just a bit too strong, and it's coming up into that 460 zone where you might expect a bit of reaction lower. Anyone else? Is there any other crude stocks you're looking at? So oil stocks or anything like that? Is there anything else you want to have a quick look at? All right, let's just see where the market is. Just see where our little portfolio is at the moment. Pretty much the market's up, not even a point. It's still struggling. I like this one. I've actually got the CZN. It's doing well. What else have I got? What are our alerts? Tor's another one. We've taken a partial on that one. We haven't spoken about our alerts yet, have we? No. Yeah, there's a good chance, Greg, that it could just be YouTube. You may just have to flick it off and on again. And it could be from my end, it's just struggling to get through. It might be the internet on your side just struggling to hook up to it. I think mine's starting to play up a bit. Refresh works so great. Actually, I'll try that myself. Yeah, good. All right, so Tor's one we've got. It's sold off from that 40 mark. I want to see if it can hold up around above 35. We're taking a partial on that, and I can't quite remember where. Still in the remaining because it still has some good potential on that. You can look at the weekly. You just want to see if it can hold up around here, have another kick higher. Otherwise, we may be forced just to close out of that. We'll see how that goes. And you can see that pressure down, even though it doesn't look that great. The pressure on the daily has been quite heavy. It's been seeing some heavy selling. I'm getting a stutter today. Some heavy selling, but it's getting soaked up. The buyers are happy to soak it up around this 32 to 35 mark. So that'd be interesting to see if it can hold and start get another little kick up, maybe to 37, hold some minor higher lows, and then see if we can get some more. And buyers start to flood back in and push it through 40. MGE, that's your Magellan Global Equities Fund. So that's your ETF, I think. Taking a partial in that at 294 from 280, I think was the entry. And that's just up into this high. If it can, it may just have to back off from those highs, build a higher low, and then go again, but we'll see how it goes. That's probably at APT is the same. We've taken partial on a lot of these. APT, that start just the last couple of days, if we can hold up around that 525 today, I think we come within a cent of getting stopped out of this one at 508. And that low was 509, so yes, a cent. So we've taken a partial. a cent from getting stopped out on the remaining, and if it can hold up around here and we start getting that to lift again and holding this higher low, and we could get that pushing straight up through 550 and that another leg higher, which would be awesome. So that's looking good still. Hasn't proven anything just yet. NCZ, like I said, we're out of that. Elders, 5 Elders is the last one, and that's going great. So we're just going to see if we can get up towards that 530. Might be looking just on a potential on that one, a partial on that one, a potential partial. I need another coffee, I think that's what it is. A potential partial exit on this one up here around that 530 mark. But we'll see how that goes. MBE. MBE is moving today. Look at that, that's a good little mover actually, isn't it? So we've had MBE, I think we've been in and out of that a few times. Is that right? We were in, I think we had this one, you know, pushing up through 2015, 2016. Didn't do much of it, obviously, there. We had it again just recently with this move up here, did all right, and then it backed off again, so all the way back down to 5. So see if they can kick on with it as well. Look, if there's nothing else, we'll probably call it a day there, guys. I hope it went well. I hope we it all went through okay. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll finish it up there, and we'll be back in on Monday, and as hopefully I have some proper internet by then. You buy it up, Dev. Give it a go. All right. So yeah, guys, I'm thinking. Thanks very much for joining me. Hopefully we'll be back in on Monday with proper internet and everything will be a little bit smoother on my end anyway, a bit cheaper anyway, and see if I'm properly set up with the proper hard drive, the proper desktop anyway, rather than just on the laptop. But thanks for joining me. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll speak to you again on Monday. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.